mountains of the Danshui district in the background there, but I'm not going there. I'm gonna cross here. And today I think it's going to be a fairly mixed bag of topics. This is unscripted, uncharted. I'll be just talking randomly about the shit that's been going on. Today the agenda is, one of the things on the agenda is to get my own bike, my old little folding bike from storage. I'm not even sure it's still there, but it might still be there. That's on the kind of practical utilitarian side. By the way, this is the mixed pedestrian area, so I like to sit around here, but today not too busy. Yesterday was the first sunny day in a long while, so people are starting to dress in a more like summerly fashion. Yesterday was really nice. Today's even better.
It's like a passive, like
I'm starting to see more people actually dressing down, which is good. And the sun is great. Also vitamin D, I guess. By the way, why don't I? Let's go east. Zhongxiao Road. I like this road. And the more you go further towards Xinyi, the city hall area, buildings become nicer. Not as old as here, even though these are very expensive. Closer to the Xinyi city hall area, it gets progressively more expensive. Buildings are nicer, shops are fancier. Here there's a lot of small single brand or independent outlets, but in Xinyi it's all big ass shopping malls owned by conglomerates or large real estate companies. So you can tell that Taipei is a pretty expensive, rich city. I had a debate yesterday with a friend of mine, wondering how is it possible that despite the low wages, Taipei is one of the leading cities in Asia for luxury spending, and Taiwan as a whole is one of the leaders in luxury spending, and the amount of tourists that go around the region of this. Taiwan is #1 big spender in Japan. That's crazy given how small the country is. So we had quite a debate. I was arguing that a lot of it is credit spending, people kind of living beyond their means, especially since they can't afford housing anyway. So they're just wasting all their money on stupid things like handbags and holidays. And my friend was saying, oh, actually there's a lot of really wealthy people here. You just don't see them. I guess it just means I'm hanging out with the poor ass crowd. But either way, let's keep moving. I I hate waiting at the traffic lights. So for me, it's better to keep moving slowly with the pedestrians. My bike is being kept actually quite far away from here. It's in, almost in Xinjiang. But I decided to take a ride down there because taking the MRT on a sunny day kind of feels like a waste. I want to enjoy the outside on a bicycle, get my vitamin D. With all the shit that is going on in the world right now, you might be wondering, what am I doing in Taiwan? Am I not worried about China potentially invading Taiwan? Another like regional war breaking out. And I'm not entirely oblivious to all of these problems. I have my own calculations, miscalculations, possibly, using the best information that I have. I've frequently been proven wrong in the past, but at the same time, I've also been correct in some longer term assessments. So I guess at the end of the day, all you can do is live and see what happens. I think the world is much less safer now than it was a few years ago. The instability has obviously increased, with the largest war happening right in the middle of Europe, and it's been simmering since 2014, really flared up in 2020. Now with the Donald Trump administration in the White House, I don't think it makes the world a safer place. If anything, it will increase instability. Oh, look at that, 101. But I can't go there. I mean, I'm heading in a different direction. So this must be Xinyi on her, yeah. So back to the topic. I do think the world has become a lot less safe than before. I've been actually kind of keeping a little chart of the countries in crisis since before COVID. And you know what? The number of these countries, the number of the countries, nations in crisis has basically doubled since before the COVID, I think, since 2019. Before COVID, I was counting about a dozen, maybe 15 such countries, and mostly in economic crisis, economic hardship, prolonged depression, recession, hyperinflation situations, with only a few having a major security crisis. However, in the past 5 or 6 years, total number has increased to about 30, 28, 30. So it's no longer just the usual suspects. Yeah, previously the dozen or 15 countries were the ones that were typically associated with instability. All of them were just failed states. In Africa, or a place like Haiti. But now it has kind of sucked in a lot of countries that used to be somewhat secure, somewhat wealthy, prosperous even. And if things keep going like this, might have to add a new category to the 3 categories that I had before. Those for economic crisis, security crisis, and environmental. I might have to add a new type, a new category of crisis, political governance, because the level of dysfunction in some societies is actually becoming quite critical, and it could morph into either an economic or security crisis. Our prime suspects for that would be places like South Korea, United States. Shall I turn here? And unfortunately, quite possibly Taiwan as well, because of the somewhat concerning level of governance dysfunction in society. Like the street, I'm gonna stop and take a picture again. So just bear with me. I have a pretty kind of weird attention span. I get distracted by the visuals, the aesthetics. So the 2 points of the thesis: the world is becoming unsafe, more unsafe. The level of risk is and uncertainty is increasing, but somehow I'm still here. Now let's maybe expand onto the situation, what I think about it. Now this will be, in this case, kind of a departure from the normal topics, normal ways I comment on things. Because typically I just show you what's going on around, and it's very factual. There's very little personal input. It's like maybe from an aesthetic, purely aesthetic comment. Oh, I like this, or I don't like this. But this time will be a lot more on the things that I don't observe directly. Things that I read in the news, watch on the news, and what I make of it, given my background of wandering around. I think the US is in shambles. It's not an existential crisis yet, but it's definitely a governance crisis. Somehow very vocal minority managed to hijack the presidential office. happened before in history, some other places, and sometimes it ended up in a tyranny through the democratic process. It happened before in Germany, in Italy, in Argentina, and generally it did not end well in the midterm. So I'm wondering how it will end up in the United States. Hopefully it doesn't go the full civil war scenario. That would be very unfortunate. That would be major destruction for all of the serious policymakers, decision makers in the world. That would create a lot of space for the bad actors. Now, how this bodes for us here in Taiwan? It doesn't bode very well. The US is not showing unity with its allies in the West, and I think even though we hear it that the Asian allies have been getting some quiet reassurances, blah blah blah, I don't think anyone takes it seriously anymore. Everyone is coming to realize it. The US is not really kind of cannot be counted on. The way I see Donald Trump's and his new administration's comments regarding the NATO as a whole, alliance as a whole, and countries that are NATO members, i.e. military allies, most notably Canada, have been extremely detrimental to the alliances. It also means that the US commitment to the AUKUS, which is the US, UK, Australia alliance, and what was starting to fledge as an alliance a few years ago, the Quad, can no longer be seen as a going concern. They might get backtracked. US might walk back on them, and these three were supposed to be very important elements of the layered security arrangement here in the region, in the Indo-Pacific. Specifically when it comes to countering People's Republic of China. Now, with these things either dissolving or not materializing, China will see a lot more freedom in picking the weak elements in these potential networks and kind of picking on them one by one, dismantling them. Rendering the whole regional security arrangement ineffective. They have already demonstrated that with their live fire drills off Australia, which took everybody by surprise. There was quite a bit of panic down under. It's just very consistent as part of their whole campaign of pushing the boundaries of what's acceptable for China. So if China has any designs to move on Taiwan militarily, They will probably want to do it during this Trump administration. And they probably only have 2 years to do it, because it's not even certain that the administration could survive it. It's becoming quite dysfunctional. So we might see another impeachment attempt, possibly successful one. We might see midterm elections. We might see all kinds of chaos in the States in the coming couple of years. So that's a window opportunity for the CCP and the DLA. They have that time frame, which is also that time frame because the leadership issue in China itself is quite pressing. Xi Jinping is getting old, so he might be a bit impatient. Now, is that 100%? Well, if that was 100%, I wouldn't be here. I would be as far away from the region as it's physically possible. Maybe. Because when that shit hits the fan, okay, it's going to be pretty bad everywhere. No place to be safe. Now, why I don't think this is 100% certainty? There's a whole host of reasons. You might have heard, you might have seen videos why Taiwan is so difficult to take. That's because of its geography, its mountains, the beaches and stuff. Even these landing bridges, floating landing bridges that China has been building, they change the equation somewhat, but they don't necessarily make it easier to take Taiwan by force. I think there's two main elements why it hasn't happened yet and might not happen at all. So one of them is the DLA's military capability versus Taiwan's own capabilities, which are often underestimated or misunderstood. As was Ukraine. I think Ukraine not folding in 2 weeks was a major factor that forced the PLA to reconsider, and they had to basically increase their safety factor by magnitudes. Basically, they figured they need a lot more numerical superiority in every domain. Now, whether or not they will achieve that, maybe they already have, maybe they never will. We don't know. They have a lot of ships, a lot of spanking, brand new ships, which until recently were not really seen as highly capable. But this recent voyage down to Australia, maybe shows they have some progress in that regard. Basically, they're kind of getting a little more seaworthy, a little more assertive, a little more capable quantities of good enough quality. That we don't know. The Chinese way has always been large numbers of small things. They do have small things, but do they have them good enough? That remains to be seen. Because it is one thing to intimidate somebody like the Philippines with your fishing militia or coastal guard, and it's a very different thing facing an actual navy. Some observers believe that the Japanese Navy alone is more capable than the whole Chinese PLA Navy. That I don't know. But we do know that, for instance, JMSDF has at least 2 light carriers. Izumo and Kaga. Which are of much better quality than all of the 3 Chinese medium carriers in every way imaginable. By the way, I'm already in the Wenshan district. This is somewhat near the Wangmong station, Roosevelt Road. So it's along the green line. So that's one reason why they might not be fully capable as yet to stage a full-blown blockade followed by an invasion, or just forcing the DPP government out. The other reason, I think, has more to do with the command and control in the PLA, in the political structure of the CCP. There's been ongoing chaos for the past at least 2 years, 3 years. They had a kind of revolving door of defense ministries, senior commanders. There's even been some reshuffling in the Central Military Commission. So there's not a whole lot of trust. And if you watch Chinese in exile or Taiwanese commentators on the YouTube who frequently post some excerpts from the Chinese web, the dissent is quite palpable, and the current leadership is not as monolithic as it wants to be seen. So there's basically at least 2 factions, Xi Jinping obviously, and the princelings, which themselves used to be several factions, but some of them have either been eradicated or consolidated against Xi, so it's basically becoming like Xi versus the princelings type of affair. It's not that it just recently spilled into the military. Whatever happens in the party also happens in the military. The 2 are the same thing, or 2 sides of the same coin. I'm gonna park the bicycle here by the station. Oh man, it's getting hot. It's getting very hot. One long station. This is where I used to be last year. The bike is parked. It was only 10 NT riding all the way. I think it's a good deal. So, as I said, there's not a whole lot of trust, and I've heard multiple times the theory that some in the PLA might actually be pushing the current administration, which the administration wants to portray like they are prepared to take Taiwan by force, but they know it would be extremely disastrous, even for the CCP themselves. Might result in a complete disaster, failure, and the ouster of the regime. But in the PLA, they on the one hand demonstrate this preparedness, increased readiness and all, and subtly or not so subtly pushing Xi Jinping to do it, maybe in a phased way, through blockade, taking some of the outlying islands, to do something, at least some kind of a military action, with the agenda being taking power by force. And this might be why actually the CCP or the PLA are building the new military compound just outside Beijing. There's been a lot of reports about how huge it is and how it wouldn't make any sense in the event of a war. I think it would make a lot of sense in the event of a war with actually within China, in the event of a civil war. This is what the Myanmar junta did way back early 2000s when they started building their new capital. Naypyidaw was jungle fortress deep inside the country, outside actually not even outside, like way out from the main city, from the capital city back then, the former Rangoon, or the name Yangon, but then they moved the capital to Naypyidaw. Precisely in order to sit out social upheaval, civil war, all kinds of internal scenarios. Well, I gotta say, after a bit of a cleanup with these wet napkins and having the tires pumped up a bit, it seems in a perfectly working order. So hopefully the tires don't burst on me. I don't think they will. Yeah, there's quite a bit of superficial rust. This bike is about 15 years old and it spent most of its life outside in the humid Taiwan air, constant rain. The only problem was I forgot my combination. When you have 4 digits, that means you have about 17,000 possible combinations. Yep. So it's done, cleaned up, pumped up. Starting to get pretty hot, so but I've installed this thing and let's see how it works. Now back to the topic. There's these 2 reasons why the Chinese government, the PLA, might be very hesitant. And this is all happening against the backdrop of a kind of unfolding and deepening economic crisis in China. At the heart, they built kind of an export-oriented economy, and global trade is disintegrating, it's crumbling, especially with all these tariffs and all the countries becoming very protectionist. Prime example, the US, obviously, but even the EU is become not nationalist because it's a supranational entity, but as a regional bloc they have become extremely protective. So This all doesn't really bode so well for the Chinese experts. And it's kind of a lose-lose situation for them, I think. If they take the risk, they might go for it and try to pressure Taiwan, or like try to take it militarily. But that will totally kill what's left of their exports, and that will probably degrade, disrupt much of what's remaining of the global trade, which will hurt China in its own turn as well, because a very big percentage of global trade goes through the Taiwan Strait, and in the event of any significant action in the South China Sea, quite possibly even the Malacca Strait will be shut down, which means half of the global trade will be disrupted. So kind of they might end up accelerating the demise of their own economic model, which doesn't really seem like a good idea. But if they don't do it, in the longer run, they will lose anyway. So this is what I'm kind of a little bit worried about. Guys like Xi Jinping and all, they might say, okay, let's go out with a bang, with a big bang. Kind of, if we are losing anyway, especially if they know like they're old and dying, why not go out with a big bang? So that is something that could throw a big wrench. But on the other hand, what if they go for it and things unfold not according to the plan? Because things never unfold according to the plan, especially when it comes to the military affairs. To paraphrase Dao De Jing, actually not to paraphrase, it's a direct quote: the craftier the plan, the stranger the outcomes. With the current level of chaos in the world system is a chaos machine essentially at this point. Maybe it always was, it's always been, but now especially so. So whatever you do, whatever your inputs you input into the machine, your outcomes will be not entirely unrelated, but completely unintended. Especially with players like the Trump administration, who seem to almost pride themselves on being these agents of chaos, and they think they can thrive in whatever chaos they create because they're so anti-fragile, so to speak, to borrow from Nassim Taleb. But even they eventually discover the limits of control. Eventually they find the limits of the chaos that they can tolerate on their own, or their ability to anticipate the outcomes. Pretty evident in the case with this whole stupidity of the rare earth negotiation, which was a joke from day one to the final day. And anyone who had heard the expression rare earth metals before it became mainstream, and I work in Vancouver, back in the 2008, like 2000s. And I actually studied the rare earth metals junior miners market. I don't claim to even know a thing or two about the metals per se, but let's say I know what it means and I know what it doesn't mean. I think everyone got unintended outcomes out of that theater. So the same pattern can be observed in this whole Ukrainian invasion on the Russian part. They got a completely unintended host of consequences. And I think in case with China, if they try to make a move on Taiwan, they will also get completely unintended hostile consequences. Awesome. Let's get a key. A coffee from here. I haven't been here in 6 months, so why not get a key? Yeah, so they have this oolong matcha, I think. Yeah, 70 baht, 70 NT. Let's have it. The owner also speaks Japanese, interestingly. Look at this huge cup of oolong matcha, oolong milk tea. So anyway, this is my current read of the situation. Got stuff to do here. Yeah, so we'll see how things continue to unfold. All the best to Ukraine.